Well, we were talking Zags this morning on Upper Left Sports, and coming off a big win versus number 11 West Virginia, middle of last week, and Saturday morning, you're strolling out of bed, and I'll tell you what, as a Zags fan, you didn't have any plans because you were going to watch the number one team in the country take on the number 2 Baylor Bears. And then about an hour before tip-off, news broke that the game would not be getting played.
That was some brutal news to see that early, man. I was getting hyped up for the game. I was ready to go. Those tweets start rolling out from some of those big accounts saying the game's canceled. At first, you wanted to believe that it wasn't true. Unfortunately, the report came out though, just due to COVID protocols, that game wasn't going to happen. And really just, felt like a gut punch on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, we learned from an interview with Mark Few that, they're doing daily testing. They go down, they're testing on Tuesday, they test on Wednesday, the day of that West Virginia game, they test on Thursday. The positive test actually came on Friday, and it was one student athlete and one member of the traveling party. And then it's the Indiana Board of Health who makes a decision, and they decided through contact tracing and all that the game should not be played. So game on Saturday is off. Mark Few and Scott Drew, the head coach of Baylor, have made it known that they want to get this game rescheduled. And what does this mean moving forward for the Zags? Let's talk first. They got back to Spokane. They flew home early, and then news comes out last night that Gonzaga is suspending all basketball activities until December 15th. So looking at their schedule, that means the Bulldogs will have to cancel upcoming games against Tarleton, Southern, Northern Arizona, and Idaho. And what this feels like to me, if you look at their schedule, they're set to face number 3 Iowa on December 19th in Sioux Falls at the Sanford Pentagon. I don't know if this is as much of the Zags trying to contain an outbreak as much as it is them trying to make sure they can make it to that Iowa game.
100%. I mean, the Iowa game is far more important than, all 4 of these upcoming games put together. So in terms of the Zags season, obviously they've got some lofty goals this year. It's no secret they are definitely looking towards the NCAA tournament and keeping a lot of things in mind regarding that. And, you go 4-0 this next week on these games, it means nothing for your March Madness seeding. I think the risk is much higher than the reward. So as tough as it is for Zag fans, to not have 4 games in the next 7 days here, I do think it's the right call long term. That Iowa game is far more important for this team's season.
Yeah, let's look at the statement that the school released. They said, out of an abundance of caution and the well-being of student athletes, in accordance with COVID-19 protocols, Gonzaga has made the decision to pause men's basketball competitions through December 14th. And I'll tell you this, it was the right call on Saturday to postpone the game. This isn't something that you can mess around with. We may all be disappointed as college basketball fans, but no one should be questioning the decision to postpone the game.
Absolutely not.
Definitely the right decision. And, we don't know. I was very interested to see if we were going to see Jalen Suggs in that game. He comes off that ankle injury. Ankle injuries, as we've both had them. And a lot of times adrenaline leads you back to getting onto the floor.
Lace the shoe up a little bit tighter.
Yeah, and they're not going to tell you, they're not going to tell you what kid tested positive because they don't need to. They're also not going to tell you, was Jalen Suggs going to play? I have a sneaky suspicion that we were going to tune in that morning and find out that Jalen was unable to go. You wake up that next morning, your ankles turn black and blue.
Oh, yeah.
So who knows, even if he could go, Jalen is such an explosive athlete that if he doesn't have that element of his game, even if he's not 100%, it's a totally different Jalen Suggs. And so while I'm sure they are trying to get this COVID-19 stuff under control, who knows, maybe this is a chance for some guys to get some rest. Mark Few even said, they've never been on a 13-game road trip. They were away from home for 13 days. What that does physically, mentally, is a huge deal to get these kids back home, get some rest. And another part of this is these schools, Idaho can take a bus up here, but Southern, Tarleton, travel plans, the expense to get these schools up here just to know, we don't know if the game's even going to happen with testing protocols.
Yeah.
It feels like the right decision for sure.
It really does, and you said it yourself, man. Idaho can be rescheduled. That's a game. It's a bus ride away. So that's a game that, realistically, let's look. They come back on the 15th. You have Iowa on the 19th. I think it does open up that possibility of the 16th for a game with Idaho to be rescheduled. I think Gonzaga would like to have a game before playing Iowa. Iowa, obviously, one of the best teams in the country, one of the best players in the country in Luka Garza. And by all accounts, as of right now, they're not taking the next 2 weeks off. So they're going to be in the flow. They're going to be sharp and ready for that game. Whereas for Gonzaga to take 2 weeks off, and keep in mind, when you're suspending all basketball activities, that means no practice as well. So we're not just talking about you're not playing games and you've had 2 weeks of practice to practice for Iowa. This is no basketball activity. So I do think it's something that Gonzaga tries is to reschedule the Idaho game for the 16th in order to get ready for Iowa, because that all of this is the goal, is to be ready for that game.
Yeah, it could be Idaho. There's another team that's a shorter bus ride away out in Cheney in eastern Washington who looks to have a very solid team this year.
Yeah.
That's a game that definitely would not be a gimme by any stretch of the imagination. That's a potential first round of the NCAA tournament game.
And we've seen those games be close in the past between Gonzaga and Eastern. Eastern, when you're 30, 40 minutes away, even if you're a huge underdog, you're going to have some fire with you.
It'll be interesting to see just over the holidays where GU typically gets some of those games in. Do they reschedule Idaho? Do they schedule in Eastern Washington? I know as a Zags lifetime and upper left sports fan, I'd love to see them somehow, it probably won't happen, find a way to schedule the WSU Cougars and their old foe with the coach down there from San Francisco on the schedule. They play Central a lot of times. But anyways, we'll see where they get those games rescheduled, maybe add a few more non-conference games. But where might we see Baylor come back into play? Because not just Zags fans, not just Baylor fans, college basketball fans were very excited to see this number 1 versus number 2 matchup. Even if, let's just say, Baylor stumbles before then, we know that both of these teams are teams, having seen a few games, that easily could match up again in the Final Four or even in an NCAA championship. Where might we see this game get scheduled, do you think?
They talked about it, right? I think there's a number of different options where this game happens. But looking at a number of different things, you look at the Gonzaga schedule, you look at the Baylor schedule, and you also got to keep in mind the national media schedule, because this is a game that is not going to be televised on Root Sports. It's not going to be on the WCC, live stream website. This is a national media game. Yep. So, you and I were talking about it. You mentioned that media will dictate this. I think it's a great point. It really brings in Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, I think, is a great option. It is a day that notoriously is pretty light on sports. For the NBA, Christmas Eve has always been an off day because, of course, they have games scheduled all day Christmas. And the NFL as well is taking Christmas Eve off. It's a light day on the TV schedule.
No top 25 games in college basketball.
No top 25 games that day. People are off work. They're home. Viewership will be up. And you look at the schedules, too. Neither team has anything scheduled past the 21st. They both play the 21st and have a break until after Christmas. So I think, as of right now, if this game is to happen soon, Christmas Eve looks to be the best option.
It'll be interesting to see, do they go back to Indiana, to Indianapolis? Do they go play this in Vegas, which is kind of in between the two schools? There are a few different bubble setups that have been set up where UW and Baylor played, and it really is going to be dictated, I think, a lot by, I can guarantee you, CBS wants this game. Yeah. They had the rights to the first game. They're going to want this game. So I think TV will dictate where it's being played, what time. But I think knowing Scott Drew had a great statement just saying, listen, when we recruit these guys, we recruit them telling them we're going to give you a chance to play on the highest level, get eyeballs on you. And so they feel, both these coaches feel like they owe it to their players to give them that experience. I can tell you, neither of these schools are worried about the budget or the potential cost of adding this game.
No.
They want to get this in for their student athletes. So I think we will get a chance to see Gonzaga take on Baylor again, whether it be in South Dakota, whether it be in Vegas, whether they go to one of these two schools. We will see this game. And as a Zags fan, going to be a couple slow weeks. We've got you. We'll be covering lots of Gonzaga basketball over the next couple weeks. And before we know it, Gonzaga basketball will be back.